Hi everybody, it's me again. This is the second part of the 2 becomes 3 video, and thank you very much for the commentary and the support so far. I appreciate it very much. Um, One can say I'm like kind of on a roll right now, so I'd like to share with you something else that's come to my mind. As you know, when you're sharing information, um, I you tend to learn as well as you're sharing the information. And so what I'd like to share with you is what has then come to my awareness is that, to give another example of something else for us to understand as well, the process in which we can look at the three, we can look at it as seeing it to be like a mother, father, and a child as well. And in that process, when we see the mother, father, and child, we also see that this is now uh, sacred masculine as well as sacred feminine principles, and in the child as um, the expression or the explanation of, or the perception field that experiences the feedback of the mother and the father's energy. Okay, so for example, we're looking at the way that the entire process goes with regards to the groups, the the, um, the causes as well, and the causes. I'm not going to name the names. I don't feel like having it being tracked on my channel as well. I don't want to give it energy, as I've said before. Where we look at the way that that particular generation, that young generation, um, expresses its um, understanding, its realization, its way it exists, and where it sees itself in the social system of the planet, for example. And in terms of that, we're looking at why this particular child or this generation, I'm going to call it the child of the system of that particular cause or that causality, and what goes how why that child is behaving this way on a psychological level. I think if we look at it a little bit deeper, we see that the child experiences a life where it might have existed, where everything was done for this child. And by doing everything for the child and then making sure that the child lives in a secure environment and lives in a secure space, it then grows up and is in already that state of, or that frame of mind, that mind frame, which then is part of how that child reacts to its immediate environment, its perception, its field of perception of how this child sees where they belong in the system. And the same goes for us, for example, and as another generation, and our parents before them, how they operated from the beginning of time. Let's look at the earliest, for example, and just a section of the historical path of, let's say, parents that have come through war time to come and live in a country, to leave where they were, or they had to flee from a particular country during certain war times, and then raising a child with that as the platform, or as that perception from the past. So for example, my parents lived in the war. This is just an example. I don't have parents who've lived in the war, but as an example, I have a parent who's lived in the war, who survived the wars, irrespective of which one it is. And I am raised with the awareness that I must be grateful for everything that I get. I must not go against authority, because my parents' experience of the war was perceived as chaotic, and so my education from my parents is to learn that I must appreciate order. I must respect order. I must respect and be grateful for everything that I've got. Um, and in that, I must work hard to attain that, to attain exactly that. And so I am raised with their understanding and their perceptions of what they've experienced. And so then, let's say how I grew up was quite hard, because I couldn't, the discipline was too harsh. Things were not said, things were hidden, things were kept quiet and rather not spoken about it. A child should be seen and not heard, that sort of thing. And then I raise my child in the, coming forward, as being a bit more lenient. Uh, in my, I don't want to raise you, my child, the way that I was raised when I was a child. I want you to understand that you can live perfectly fine. Everything is okay. There is abundance everywhere. You just have to make sure that you maintain um, self-respect and putting a little bit of discipline in there, and you'll be fine. But work hard, study well, and you'll get a good job. Okay. That child then goes along and then has a child of his or her own, and they then raise the child perhaps in their experience, how they interpret how they were raised, and in the same process they interpret or implement. Again, take in consideration, please refer back to the first video of this particular series, that the child then will then be the field of experience, the creator, the consciousness, the intent, the light, seeing itself and then experiencing itself. And in the same process, what I see and what I experience of a particular event, and how I interpret how I feel about that event. Perhaps I should just be a little bit more clearer and give a bit more better example, is to say that what is my what do I feel from what I see? It always goes back to the self. And what I'm trying to say, perhaps in the end of all of this, is to say that we have to be careful what we bring forward into creation, because ultimately we are also the creators of our own sins. For example, we look at the evolution of what it is that has driven a person, a human, to, instead of drinking water from a leaf, to making a bowl out of that, and then catching the water in that, and then sharing it with the tribe, and then in that way the tribe then becomes accustomed to that, and then tries to better on that, and then perhaps invents glass bowls or earthen jars, and so it goes. And in the same way, we're looking at industries. The same thing happens. We have the guy who invented electricity, completely unknown, and then Thomas Edison steals that plan to try and bring that forward. So yes, we have two scenarios here. We have the scenario of creating something and then wanting to better create it for the betterment of the community, of the tribe, of the system. And then we also have those who exploit and do the same thing with let's say my creation, taking my information that I'm discussing with you on this video particularly, for example, and then perhaps spinning it around and then using it as if it is that person's information, unless I have put there limited, copyright, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that sort of thing. Patent theft. Okay? And in the same way, we look at the Industrial Revolution and where the Industrial Revolution takes place and wants to create something for the betterment of the human society, because we don't want to live in darkness. We want to live with lights and electricity and hot water, and we want to be able to cook our food on a stove and not freeze outside when we are barbecuing or whatever, doing what we're having to do out of some hole with stones and fire in it. We want to become better in ourselves. And so when we're becoming better in ourselves, eventually we get those who run with it and who are in that consciousness where they want to do this for the betterment of the human civilization, but there will be costs. Animals will die, plants will die, people will die while they're building the factory. And then again we get the next one that comes along, the textile revolution. There was also something like that, I remember. And then right now we're on the precipice of the technology, the technological evolution, the tech evolution. I think that's what I will just, revolution, tech revolution. That sounds good. And in that way, they want to so push the fact that everybody must be connected. Everybody has to be on the same internet line. We're all interconnected. We have what is it that they used to use? A global village connected face to face through technology. So much so that they're doing this again at the cost of others. So it is the same process. It is an ongoing cycle of creation, intent and creation, and the experience or the perception and the perception of that particular creation. So, going back to the first problem, I think I'm going to call it the first problem just because my mind is going there right now. It keeps telling me to go there. So I'm going to bring up the story about the Adam and Eve and the snake and the garden of trees of good and evil. Okay? So, if you know your child really well and you put something, you say, okay, don't touch that hot stove. You can touch everywhere else, but you don't touch that hot stove. What is it that the child's going to do? Given how the child's personality is, okay, I can see the stove will burn me. I just wouldn't bother then touching it. I'm just going to leave it like that. I'll touch other things. Or I'm going to touch that stove because I want to see. I don't believe what they're saying. So I touch the stove and I burn my fingers to pieces. Then I get groused at because I touched the stove. Then I get told, I told you, don't touch the stove. What did I just say? Bang, bang. So, humanity in its essential existence is still the same. There is no progress in terms of... Okay, let me rephrase this. It's not that there's no progress. The fact that it's more like it's the same pattern. Rather, let me say pattern. When I say pattern, I'm saying what's making us want to go and create light for others to understand what we're saying? What is it that made me want to make this video to share with you? Was it for me, or was it to share this information for the betterment for all of us? It is up to you to decide how you feel when you're listening to what I'm saying to you. Again, that is also your perception. So what I want to say to you is, it was a bad excuse to draw in to give the snake the fault for really wanting to have tasted the fruit in the first place. We should start taking responsibility for ourselves. If I'm going to go and have some of that fruit, I'm going to have some of that fruit. Why do I have to use a snake as a scapegoat, use a race or a particular belief system, or blame something because I did that? That means inherently, this is generally speaking and not referring to anyone in particular. This is a general blanketed observation, is that humanity does not understand its respect for free will. The education in regards to what free will is it has to be relevant. We have to become aware that there's not going to be someone standing behind me right now telling me, you need to do this, you need to do that, da 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 da. I have to find that inside of me. And how I choose to raise my child is, I choose to raise my child in a balanced awareness, to see and to experience, okay, everything that my family lineage has taught me or has trickled through the bloodline was to be aware of others as well as myself. And in that way, learning to balance between those two. Yes, I must also be aware of myself. I can't just be aware of everyone around me. I must be aware of who I am too. So I think what I feel I'd like to share with you to end this off is really just to understand that in the first video, the explanation was to how to see how when we look at something, how we must perceive what we have to perceive out of that particular thing. We must be mindful that when we look at something specifically, and it has a shock factor to it, that those shock factors are also expected from us. So I'm also bringing in the snake, but I'm also wanting to remove the role of the snake, because I don't want to give a third party the power over my decisions. I don't want to give something outside. I don't want to have a scapegoat. I want to say that I've made that choice myself, and therefore I carry that responsibility for myself, and therefore I choose to experience my perception of the fact that I must respect knowledge of the good and the bad. I must understand, and if I could have asked, but why did you say I'm not allowed to have that? Why? Why did you say I'm not allowed to eat that fruit? I must have felt secure to ask before that happened, before I start blaming a third party. And when I'm saying third party, I'm going to give a name. It's the Soros crowds, the Rockefellers. Those are the snakes. Those are the things that are the things that can inspire or influence. And when I say inspire, I'm saying if there's enough bad shit happening that they're creating, what do? Do we rebel? We rebel in it. We fight it. We want to better it. There's too much responsibility given to too many things outside other than for ourselves. I've given you a lot of stuff here right now. I've scrambled your brain properly even more today. But I'm leaving this with you to think about. I'm sharing you. These are my thoughts. And again, like I said, challenge it. Work on it. what I want you to take with you, if you don't follow exactly everything, is to question and understand why we react to things that we see. Find the opposite of that and heal that. Keep doing that, and we will then be able to look again at the same picture, but the picture will be a little different in color. It'll be a little lighter, a little bit more detailed, perhaps. That's all I'd like to share with you. Thank you so much again, and have a beautiful day, and have a beautiful evening, and rest well, and much love to you. Bye.